Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me and watching this recording on Westlaw about source gathering. When you have a topic, when you have a statute, where can you go to find cases? What are the best methods? Obviously, you might want to search in a case law database, but sometimes looking in different places might be a better lead for you because when you search in a case law database first, you might not even really be sure exactly what you're looking for yet. So I want to show you what I mean by starting with maybe a statute or a secondary source and why that might be a potentially better place for you to begin. But one of the other ways to source gather is by actually using our foldering system. So throughout this class, I'm going to drop documents into a folder that I'm going to create. So I'm going to click View All and my folders at the top of the screen. And I'm going to click on the icon with the little plus sign and create a new folder. So I'm just going to call this copyright brief research. And so even if this is not your topic, the things that I'm going to highlight today will actually really translate into whatever your project is if you're using a statute or any other subject matter. All right, so I've created my folder, and throughout the class, I'm going to start dropping some documents into that folder. So I'm going to go back to the home page. And I'm going to start with my statute. So I'm going to be using the fair use statute for copyright. So 17 USCA 107, and pull up that section in the US code. And so one of the reasons that starting with a statute, if you have one, is a good place to begin is because of all of the materials that we already have pre-attached to the statute, where West editors have actually read the statute, read cases, and when they read the cases, if they find cases that have cited to this section, they will attach them as a citing reference. And if they read a case that has a really in-depth discussion of a particular statute, they may add it as a note of decision case that, they're putting out there and saying, this is a case that has really discussed this statute. So the two clicks that you can do from your statute to source gather, first are on your notes of decisions. So again, the notes of decisions are only cases, and they are the specific cases that the West editors have read and have said, these have really discussed this statute. But most importantly, and why it's a great place to source gather, is the West editors tell you how they've discussed this section in the US code. So again, my issue today is going to be copyright, fair use. I'm also researching parodies, and then in particular parodies of songs. And so that's perhaps maybe my issue. Earlier this week, I was going to say last night, earlier this week, I think the Weird Al Yankovic television movie won a Golden Globe. And so Weird Al Yankovic is a great example of a person who parodies things. So gotta love Weird Al Yankovic. So I'm going to start opening up all of the subsections in the notes of decisions just to see all of the ways that cases have discussed this particular statute. So this might take a little bit of time, just depending on how many categories are in the notes of decisions, but give yourself some time to look through your statute in depth, and especially through the notes of decisions. So as I start scrolling through, I can kind of look at all of the categories here. Here we have public figures, weight and sufficiency. We can kind of keep going through and seeing all of the different subcategories. Maybe that's not the exact section I need, so I'm going to open up the next category, the use and purpose. And so here I can keep going and seeing all of the different subjects. And so I can see that sections 96 through 103 of the notes of decisions are all about parody. And so now I am linked to some cases that have discussed parity in relation to 17 USCA section 107, Campbell v. Acuff, Fisher v. Deans, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, the scoreboard posters, United Feature Syndicate, Tin Pan Apple. A lot of good cases here that are possibly a good place for me to begin. One of the reasons that I also like looking in different places rather than just in a case law database every single time is that I like to see if cases are referenced or cited to by different authors, by different types of databases, by different publications, because, I'm going to look at these MGM again, we have Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, Campbell v. Acuff Rose Music. And so I'm just starting to take this in as part of my research, as part of my planning and preparation. So I could hop into any of these, maybe jot some of these down if I wanted to do that. The next place that I want to take you into are key site citing references. Now, key site citing references will be anything and everything that has cited to this section in the US Code. So this list is obviously going to be much bigger than the notes of decisions because it includes more than cases. And so here we have cases, court documents, other statutes, administrative materials, secondary sources, which are a great place to look at. But again, let's say if I'm looking still just for cases, maybe I'm just wanting to build my stacks of cases right now. I can see that there are 1,339 cases that have also cited to this section. I can click on filters, and maybe I want to see within these 1,339, how many have referenced parity. I don't know why I accidentally hit the caps lock. You don't have to do that. And so now, hopefully my list will be made a little bit smaller. And it did. It dropped it by about a fourth of the original result of 1,339 cases down to 299 cases. So definitely a much better result for me to be able to maneuver through. I could add another search within the results, maybe parody and song, or depending on what your issue was, or and films, whatever that might be. Another filter that's really helpful, particularly if you're dealing with something in the US Code annotated, is the jurisdiction option. If you are researching Supreme Court cases or a particular court of appeals, maybe the Fifth Circuit or something like that, and you just wanted to see cases from a particular jurisdiction, you can narrow it down by that jurisdiction. So maybe I don't want to read 300 cases from different jurisdictions that aren't applicable. I just want those 3 from the Fifth Circuit. And so now I'm going to filter even more. So I started with 1,339. I then filtered to cases dealing with parity. And then now, of those 299 that reference parity, I'm now down to the 3 in the Fifth Circuit that might be a little bit more applicable to my particular research. So I wanted to show you that in the sense of if you have a statute, it's an excellent place to begin, just simply because of already all the material that we have attached, and we've told you these cases are about this particular issue. So it's an easy place to begin. I'm going to go back to the document, to the statute, and I'm going to drop that into my folder that I just created a minute ago. So I'm going to open that up and drop that into my copyright brief research folder. So I'm going to save that. Again, I'm going to come back to that at the end of class. All right, I'm going to go back to the homepage, and I want to talk about secondary sources as a place to go. So I'm going to click on content types, and I will click over on the left where it says secondary sources. Now, the other reason that I start with secondary sources, so I started with statutes, again, an easy place to start because we pre-attach things. One of the reasons that I like starting with secondary sources is twofold. I'm reading, hopefully, articles written by experts, either in that jurisdiction or in that practice area. So why not take advantage of their expertise on a particular subject to get me started. What if I don't know anything about copyrights or songs or parodies or whatever it might be? Why not read something what someone else has already written in a text or a treatise or some sort of journal that is already on that subject? So secondary sources are a good place to start. The other reason that I like starting with a secondary source as a searching point is because I can tell a lot by the article's titles and what they're going to be about. Where if I always pull up a case law search first, I don't really know what Campbell v. Acuff Rose Music is about until I open it and read it. But when you look at secondary sources results, you can tell a lot in the citation list by reading the titles of the articles. So I think that to me is another good reason to start with secondary sources. It will save you an astronomical amount of time in just figuring out where you are. So there are a couple of places that you can get started, but one of them is secondary sources by topic. You can see here that we have various topics listed here. If you are researching in a particular state, you can research in that state, or generally in things like encyclopedias, you can look through all the text and treatises. ALR is a great place to begin. But I know my issue is dealing with intellectual property and copyright, so I want to go ahead and start there. But again, you can look through all of the subjects and see if there's anything in particular that would be helpful for you. And you could start in that section. So I clicked into the intellectual property secondary sources. And now, just as I mentioned when you were looking at the notes of decisions for statutes, I always think it's a good, again, a good practice to spend just a few minutes looking through the titles of the secondary sources that you filtered out. I know your first instinct might be looking on this screen and going, okay, we have ABA SciTech lawyer, Albany Journal of Science and Technology, and none of this looks really helpful, Anna. Like, why am I even here? But if I take just a few minutes to go through maybe the first 20, the first 40, maybe even up to the 60s, or again, there are a lot. I don't know what the titles of these databases are yet, so it might take me a minute to look at them. And so I see causes of action. I'm going to come back to that one. That is one of my absolute favorite databases. I can see here we have computers, computer software, Columbia. So I'm just taking my time. It's just a couple of clicks and I kind of hit the jackpot right here. Here we have copyright law in business and practice, copyright law practice, litigation handbook, guide to copyright law. So a lot of good databases here that I maybe have never really heard about. And so I'm teaching myself at the same time, if this might even be a place or a practice area I might be interested in learning more about. Maybe I'm going to take some IP courses in the future. And so again, to me, the research process is just also learning for yourself what, information you have access to. And this is a great exercise. And that is, go into those filtered secondary sources and learn what you have access to so that if it ever comes up again that you need to research copyright law, you'll know about a couple of these cool databases. And again, I could spend a few more minutes going through the rest of these clicks, but I'm going to go ahead and click into copyright law in business and practice. Don't know a lot about this database, just want to check it out and see what might be in here. And so because I'm in an intellectual property and copyright law database, I obviously don't need to use those phrases or words within my search. So now I'm probably really going to want to focus on something really specific. And so I'm going to use just a really simple search here. And because I'm in one database, my search can be really simple. If I was in all of these, maybe I did an all search and all IP secondary sources, I would probably have to be a little bit more specific, but I'm just in one database. So I'm just going to type in the word parody just to see in this database what I get. I could do parody and song or parody and fair use, but I know I'm probably not going to get that many results because I'm just in, kind of one book, one publication. And you can see here that I got 11 results. And I can see here we have non-infringement and fair use defenses, testing to determine if a work is a protected parody or an untested sequel, something about erotica. I don't know if that's important here. Commercial use, transformative use of a work in determining fair use, generally. So these might be some great places for me to look in the sense of, what is, what is the test to determine if a work is a protected parody or some sort of untested sequel? I'm not sure. And so here I can see some of this information about Gone with the Wind is the example here. And so there was a book called The Wind Done Gone, and it was a work of fiction by another author that was maybe parodying Gone with the Wind. And so this is kind of what I like to see. This is what it's kind of explaining things to me. What were the tests that were done? I can drop this into my copyright folder, save that for future use. And so here we have, thus the court, found that she had not created a parody pure and simple, but somewhat of a parody mixed in with other elements that resulted really in the duplication of Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. I can see in footnote 8 that it's listed there, the case that it's cited to, and SunTrust Bank might be a case that I would want to take a look at because they said that it wasn't a parody. Maybe I'm trying to argue against the case. And so again, one other reason that I do like a lot of these smaller databases is the texts aren't too long, 20 pages. That's pretty easy on the eyes. In fact, a lot of it will oftentimes be the footnotes. And so here we have quite a few footnotes leading me to some more cases that might be helpful. One other reason I like looking at the footnotes in addition to source gathering, I see my Campbell v. Acuff Rose music here. I saw that in my notes of decisions earlier. I see Berlin v. EC Publications, Rogers v. Coons, Ellesmere Music. Again, some other cases. So things are starting to look maybe a little familiar, Castle Rock Entertainment. And so that's what I like about looking at other databases, to seeing what people are citing and referencing in relation to a particular issue. And here it's the test of whether, something is determined to be a parody or not. And these cases might all help me be able to do that. And that's why I like looking in some of these little more specific databases that are geared to that practice area. Again, things like ALR are amazing. Go there if you want to. You should just check that database out. But if you're researching something that has something specific, starting in a secondary source specific to that practice area is an excellent place to begin. I can go back to my list and, just generally look to see if anything is here. Maybe I want to look at one of these. Generally, here we have non-infringement and fair use defenses. I can see what this article talks about. Again, just 17 pages, not too bad. Here we have something talking about one of Shakespeare's works. Oh, but here we have, interestingly, this is discussed in the Supreme Court case of Campbell v. Acuff Rose Music. Again, my case that I've seen now 3 times. I've seen it in my notes of decisions, 2 articles. Maybe I want to drop this into my folder, keep that for reference for later. And so that is just another place for you to begin. So I'm going to go back. And I'm going to go back to all of my intellectual property text and treatises list, back to that filtered list of publications. Oh, actually, it just took me just to some IP like specific. Let's see. Oh, but it does have my causes of action. So it did take me back to an even smaller list. Not sure why it did that, but it did highlight one of my absolute favorite databases on Westlaw. I've had a student ask me if you could, pick, 4 or 5 databases to use all the time. Causes of action would be one of them. A lot of times you're trying to prove or defend a cause of action. You're trying to lay out the elements to prove what you're trying to say the court should do. And causes of action is a database that will do that. It's a great resource that gives you the required elements to prove or defend your cause of action. And again, it's a really simple database to research in. And so I'm going to keep it really simple. It does cover a lot of different practice areas. So I might need to add a couple more things other than just parity. So I'm going to type fair use and parity just to ensure that I'm looking maybe for that copyright issue of fair use in the article. And so here, again, a pretty nice result, just 20 documents. And again, I love looking at titles of articles in my secondary sources search results. So it's easy for me to be able to look through these titles to see if this article might be useful for me. And so here we have causes of action for copyright infringement under the Federal Copyright Act. So that might be what I'm looking for. Here we have in pictorial, graphic, or sculptural works, the arts, maybe not exactly what I'm looking for under the Lanham Act. Sound recording, so that might be helpful. Again, I can kind of keep going through just to check to see if any of these might be helpful for internet defamation, infringement of the right of publicity, trade name, revenge porn, computer software. And so a lot of these to me are a really easy way to go through the list and help you figure out which article might be the most useful for you. And that's why I like secondary sources results, is that I can pretty much, kind of determine what article I want to open up or might be the most beneficial. So in this case, I'm going to go back up and click into the article about sound recordings. Whoops, passed it up. Where did it go? Oh, here we go. Cause of action for infringement of copyrights and sound recordings under the Federal Copyright Act of 1976. Now, I will tell you that articles and causes of action can be quite lengthy because it does cover quite a bit of material. It lays out things for the plaintiff. It lays out things for the defense. It gives you examples, sample documents. And so you can see here in the outline exactly what it's going to cover. And you can use these links to jump to that part of the article. So I can see in section B, section 24, it's going to talk about fair use. And so I can easily jump to that part of the article. And I can jump back to the outline by clicking back on that title. You can see here sample case, relevant statutes, complaints, answers. And so I love these articles. They give me just a ton of information and, they lay it all out for you very nicely. But this is also what I love. Right at the top of the article, it has your prima facie case. In order to establish a claim for copyright infringement in a sound recording, a plaintiff must establish 1 and 2. And then it'll tell me the section numbers where you can see those discussions of those particular issues. But more importantly, also, a defendant has several defenses available, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so sections 17 to 24 talk about the defenses to a potential copyright infringement case. And that's what I love about causes of action, is it kind of lays everything out for you. That to me can be part of, the biggest confusion is, what exactly am I trying to prove? What is it that exactly I'm trying to say? And these kinds of databases can really help lay that out there for you. And so here are some of the proof that you need. And so now I know I need my cases, what I need them to do for me. It also helps teach me new terminology. Maybe, as a 1L, we didn't take intellectual property. And so I don't know the words infringement, fair use, parody, ownership, licensing, exclusive use. I wouldn't have known all of that terminology, but these secondary sources are really teaching me the language I need for this practice area. I'm going to go ahead and drop that into my brief research folder. And so I just wanted to hop into one of these sections. And so here we have, I can look through this article and see here we have a claim for copyright infringement. It has two elements, first and second. And here we have some additional cases, London Sire Records. I can kind of keep going through and seeing what else this references, any other cases or anything that stands out to me that might be helpful in my research. So I can kind of keep just going through here, taking some times, and go through. I'm going to actually go back up and I'm going to click back on fair use. And so I went back to the fair use just simply because I also saw Campbell v. Acuff Rose music again. So this is the fourth time I've seen it. It's one of the questions that I get a lot as the Westlaw manager is, when am I done? How do I know I've found everything? Because I could sit here and do searches, fair use, parody, parody and fair use, parody and song, parody and graphical arts, whatever it might be. I always say if you start seeing the same thing cited and over again by different databases, different authors, different types of documents, that's the stuff to hone in on. I've seen Campbell v. Acuff Rose music 4 times in different places. And so that might be a sign to me. I need to open up Campbell v. Acuff Rose music because people keep citing to it. So it might be the case I need, or at least a case for me to discard. I don't know yet. I haven't opened it up and looked at it yet, but I keep seeing it. So it might be a case that I would want to take a look at. So I'm going to go ahead and click into Campbell and take a look at this case. I'm going to drop it into my folder just to save it. Don't know if I need it yet. It's 36 pages. Don't forget, with a case, you can also source gather. If you found one good case, maybe just off chance, or you've gotten one from your professors, you can use KeyCite citing references, just like we did in the section 17 USCA 107. I looked at citing references. I can see that there are 900 cases that have cited to this case. So starting with KeyCite citing references is a good place, but also the table of authorities of your case. Remember, if Campbell v. Acuff Rose music is an amazing case and it's on point, you might want to take a look at that case to see what it cited to, because it had to rely on something. So those cases might be helpful for you as well. And I can see that Campbell v. Acuff Rose cited to 24 cases in its opinion. So this is a great way to source gather and easily find cases that might be relevant to your research. Don't forget to look at the headnotes in your case. You can read the synopsis, but then following that, I can look to the headnotes to help me find additional information. I can see here we have statutory factors of the fair use doctrine. It's citing to my 17 USCA 107. Right there, this is a headnote on my issue dealing with fair use. And don't forget, you can click on your topic and key numbers from your headnotes, and it's going to run a search for me in the database of the court of the case that I'm in. So this is going to run a Supreme Court key number search for me. But let's say I was researching in the Fifth Circuit. All I need to do is click on change by the jurisdiction and change that to Fifth Circuit. And it will find any case that also discusses fair use, with that topic and key number in the Fifth Circuit now. And so now I have potentially 205 references of that same topic and key number. And I haven't even had to come up with a search yet in a case law database and look at all the information that I found with this topic and key number. And so that's what I also want you to get out of this recording is everything can take you to something else. It's just a matter of looking in a couple of new places or places that you've been given, such as a case, such as a statute, and clicking on the things that are in there to help you. The head notes, key site citing references, the West topic and key numbers, they're all there to link you to other materials to help you find the information much more effectively. All right, I'm just going to tag a couple of these just to drop them in my folder. Don't know if I need them. Maybe I don't have time right now to look at them, but they might be helpful. I can come back to them maybe next week. And then there's one last place that I want to take you into for source gathering. So I'm going to go back to content types, and I'm going to click into briefs on Westlaw. Now, I do want to do a disclaimer, and I'm not telling you to go to briefs to copy a brief or to use someone else's brief. I'm really strictly telling you to use this as a place to source gather, because these are briefs that were written and submitted to courts, but I don't know who wrote them. I don't know what the facts were. I don't know exactly what they were arguing, but if I can find something maybe close to my subject matter, at least the fair use and parody, maybe music and song, perhaps, maybe I can look just to see what cases they used and maybe that as a jumping off point. I am absolutely not telling you to do this to go and copy someone else's brief, because you don't know if they were a good writer, a bad writer, if this was some summer associate law clerk that was doing it, who knows? So again, you could select your specific jurisdiction. I'll maybe select, I'll just go ahead and search in all of them. Not sure exactly which one where I want to go. So I'm going to just do fair use and parody. Maybe I'll get a lot. We'll see. And I'll change that to everything. I'll just do all federal. And click search. And so here we have 710 documents, not too bad. And here we have something dealing with Annie Leibovitz. I think she's a famous photographer. I can sift through these. Well, maybe now I want to find something specific about a song. And so now I can do a search within results. Maybe I'm not interested in, like, I saw that article about graphical pictures and sculptures and things, art. Maybe I want something more specific about song or music. I'm going to try song first. And so I'll type in song just to see if that drops it down a little bit. Here, it still brings up that same brief. So let me just pop open this one because maybe it's actually a good one. I don't know yet. I want to look through it. And so here we have my table of contents. And here we have, the holding of the Supreme Court in Campbell is determinative of this action. There's my Campbell, probably v. Atcuff Rose. But one of the other cool things is, as I'm looking through the table of the contents, I can see the arguments that they made, what page they appear, and then I can see their table of authorities. And this is what I meant by using this as a source gathering tool. I can see on what page these cases were, so I can look to the table of contents and see how they were perhaps used. There's my Campbell v. Atcuff Rose, tried and true. And just some other cases. I've seen MGM before in a couple of, there's UF United Feature Syndicare. I think we saw that earlier. Ellesmere Music we saw. And so again, I'm feeling a little more confident that the places I've been looking, the searches I've been running have maybe been giving me the case law that I need to get the job done. I'm gonna drop this in my folder. Don't remember if I did that. Maybe I did. There we go. And I can go then into the brief to see how they used those cases. Again, I'm stressing to use this truly as a supplement to source gather. You can't cite to a brief. This is not primary law. It's not even really secondary law. I would really use it as a place to find other cases. I did want to mention that I liked doing my first search, fair use and parity, which now appears highlighted in yellow. And then if I keep clicking, I can see where the word song appears, highlighted in purple as my filtered result of the search within that first search I ran. I like that because I can see how it relates to the first search as opposed to everything just appearing in yellow. So had I included song or music up in my first search, everything would have been in yellow. And because, again, I was in just one database, I could keep my search relatively simple to start. And then I can use my filtering options to get a little bit more specific to what was important to my research. And so that is one reason I do like starting in a very particular database, briefs, a particular secondary source, such as causes of action or those copyright law databases. Use a simple search and then filter. All right, I'm going to go back to the home page and I'm going to click into my folders. Now, one of the things that I also wanted to highlight, and it's why I began with creating a folder, is your folders can source gather for you as well. And you can see that in the top right corner where it says new recommendations are available from your folder analysis. Now, these are documents that are not in your folder. So I oftentimes will get the question, well, why didn't Westlaw find this information when I was searching? And the answer is it might have, you just don't have it in your folder. And so we are highlighting and recommending documents based on what you've dropped in your folder. These might also be helpful results. And so I can see that there are 22 recommendations under the issues of how Westlaw has broken down what you have in your folder. And again, I leave this up to you. We're not saying that these are the best or that these are better or that you should use these. That is up to you to decide whether or not you want to use them. Your recommended documents can be cases, can be statutes and court rules, and or can be secondary sources. So again, I can, find other secondary sources that I didn't even look at. So I love Patreon copyright. That's an excellent treatise on copyright. So that might be really useful. So here we have business and commercial litigation. Patry's, how do you factor harm from parodies? And so here, again, just teaching you what's available on Westlaw. And that's what I love about making sure that you cover all of your bases. I know that your first instinct might be, I need to source gather, so I'm going to go to a case law database first, and that's really fine. But sometimes you don't even know what you're looking for yet, so you might not really know if the case is useful for you. So always consider your statute, looking at those notes of decisions categories, because they might really help you kind of filter out some of the noise right off the bat. Citing references, of course, from KeyCite, and then looking at some really specific secondary sources topically, that causes of action, ALR, maybe AMJUR, and see if those might help you. So I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. My email is at the top of the screen. I have a general response time of 24 hours, so please always give me at least a day to get back to you. And please don't hesitate to give me as much information, what topic you're researching, what jurisdiction, what struggles you're having, what type of document you're looking for, and just give me as much information. Don't just simply email me, hey, I'm working on a copyright issue. Can you help? Well, sure, but there are a lot of copyright issues out there. So be specific. That always helps me help you a lot more. If you need help right away, you can scroll to the very bottom of the screen and use the live chat Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And the reference attorneys are there to help you as well. But just like me, Be patient with them. They are helping you live as you're asking them the questions, but also give them as much information as possible so that they can, give you information and allow you to determine whether or not the results are beneficial to you. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great day and a great semester. And again, email me anytime you have any questions with Westlaw. Thanks so much.